Marvin Gaye, Saturday morning.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. A Marvin Gaye in the morning.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Granny's Peach Tea, episode 186. Yes, Trouble Man soundtrack, as recommended by Sam Wilson in our movie of the week by Marvin Gaye. Yeah, we're excited to get to it just after this morning, afternoon, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, another morning show here. Maybe you can tell a little bit. But yeah, we're excited to get into this, man. We got a lot to get into today. This is kind of like it's like an old school Granny's Peach Tea day. We got two different shows and a movie to talk about, so there's a lot to unpack here. We got Harley Quinn, season 5, episode 2. We got the series finale premiere of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man to talk about, and we continue our countdown of the Captain America franchise within the MCU, and that brings us to Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So, super excited to talk about this. I'm Ed, and with me as always, Jason. Jason, what's up, dude? What's going on?
What's going on, man? I'm here representing the Summer Soldier. Because that's when I shine, when I don't have to work. Excited to be here this morning. Excited to be talking about Captain America, little Harley Quinn. Share with everyone, because I'm the gaming guy between the two of us. I recently downloaded and played a little of the Justice League. Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League for the PlayStation.
Okay.
I, of course, immediately, as soon as I was able to choose a character, I was Harley Quinn. There was never a doubt about that. That's who I was going to pilot that game through as. And I paid the exact perfect price for it, which was nothing because it's free in the It was free in the PlayStation Store in January, and I'm a PlayStation member. And I'm going to say that it's fine. It's fine. It's a bit repetitive. I don't like that they wind up killing Batman, so I don't know if I'll actually play that far in the game, because I have a long-standing rule that even in video games, if I have to stop Batman, I just give up. I'm not killing Batman. Because he's Batman. He doesn't deserve that. But I'm going to play it for a bit, see how it goes. I'm enjoying tooling around as Harley Quinn, shooting things. Kind of like for any gamers who listening, it's kind of like that Avengers game that came out a while back, which was like fun at first, had a good story, but got very repetitive very quickly. And it kind of feels like that for me. But if it's still free on the PlayStation Store, it's worth the downloads. If it's not, then decide for yourself.
Yeah, it's funny because from a distance, I have read a lot about that stuff, I guess, on my Facebook or Twitter feed and everything. And I know, it seemed like fans hated the game for various reasons. Obviously, I would leave that to you to maybe the gameplay sucks or something like that. I don't really know.
Yeah. The modern problem with the problem with modern gaming is companies are very often pushing out games that are not finished. And so when this first came, which is why I never buy a game when it first comes out. I always wait like a year. And like it happened with Cyberpunk 2077, which is not a comic book game, but it stars Keanu Reeves. And that came out, it was unplayable. Like literally unplayable. They had to return people's money. And so when this came out, it wasn't unplayable, but from what I understand, it was very janky and buggy because it wasn't finished. And I think that was a big part of the controversy. And then I also think like a lot of fans were pissed in the disrespectful manner that the Justice League is treated. I haven't gotten to them yet. I just started the game, so I can't really comment on that firsthand. But that's what I remember the controversy being. It's the jankiness and the disrespectful treatment of the characters.
Yeah, I also did I'm pretty sure I read this recently. I thought they did a course correct and said that Batman was a clone, and he wasn't the Arkham Batman that gets killed in the game. They were obviously backtracking because they probably want to continue the series, and they were like, "Well, people are pissed, so we'll take it back." That wasn't Batman.
Yeah, but like clearly initially it was, and also you bring up a good point. This is supposed to be in the world of Arkham City, Arkham Knight, and Arkham Asylum. So you're not
Yeah.
just they didn't just kill a Batman. They killed a Batman that a lot of gamers grew up with, and walking it back and saying, "Oh, it was a clone." It's like, but it wasn't initially. So now you're just covering your ass, and if it was, you
Oh,
would have set out right in the beginning. It was.
oh yeah. Well, it's kind of like listen, and it's funny this year we are going to get to the Iron Man movies, but the MCU did the same thing with the Mandarin. They absolutely did.
They
Twice,
100% did.
technically. Yeah.
But I'm going to say this though, to the MCU's credit, they let a director take a chance. It failed, and they course corrected in a way that didn't feel like pandering. Like I thought the Mandarin we got. I think we discussed this on the Ten Rings episode, the Shang-Chi episode. The Mandarin that we eventually got was phenomenal. It actually made me go, you know what? This Mandarin's so good. I'm okay with getting that shitty Mandarin at first and having them retcon it because I don't think the Mandarin we would have gotten would have been that good.
Mm-hmm.
And they dedicated a movie to explaining it. It wasn't just a retraction, like, oh, guys, by the way, no, it's a clone.
Well, yeah. No, I agree. It's not as clumsy. I mean, I haven't watched what is it? All Hail the King, which was the MCU short.
Oh,
that they did.
You've never seen that?
They kind of explained. No, I did see it, but I only watched it once.
Okay.
When it came out, I watched it. I thought it was cool, and then I haven't gone back to watch it again, which we'll definitely include that in our Iron Man.
I was going to say, I think we need to cover at some point before we finish the MCU all of those one shots because I think we might have talked about them, but we never rewatched them for the show. So I think we need a one shot segment.
Yeah, I agree, and I wish they would kind of bring those back, honestly, because I thought they were.
Me too.
They were cool, but I guess now, right? Like we have shows. They've already expanded the MCU beyond just movies now. Yeah. So I guess probably they were like, all right, it's not really necessary now. I don't know.
Yeah, but they were still fun. I still enjoyed them.
I agree. I thought so too. They were nice little in between movie things where you would get to whet the appetite a little bit, give you something new when you bought the Blu-ray or DVD or whatever. So, all right. Let's get to it since we did mention we do have a lot on our plate today. So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
We got Harley Quinn Season 5, Episode 2, which dropped on Max on Thursday. We get that spoiler ticker across the bottom because if you have not seen this episode, then jump away and jump back later when we get into something.
Yeah, give us about 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It won't take too long. But Jason, what do we got here with Harley Quinn this week?
All right, so it's a direct follow-up episode from last week. We were both correct. The Doctor was coming back. He was going to be an antagonist. We were both incorrect in guessing he might be the main villain of the season because I'm pretty sure they took him out this time.
Yeah, he's dead.
So there, as always in this, there's an A and a B plot. I'll start with the A plot because I think the B plot is just fun as fuck. The A plot is Ivy. She's doing her job. She goes back to the labs to give her report and sort of starts a great initiative. She thinks that she's hallucinating this guy's voice. She's had dreams of him coming back to life. And then she goes into the green, and her and Harley's kind of pissed at her, which again, love when my girl Harley gets to be a psychiatrist because Ivy goes, me not telling you about Jason. I'm Jason. No, me not telling you about Jason. It has nothing to do with you. It really was about me. And she goes, oh, right. It had nothing to do with me. You not sharing this big traumatic thing from your past that I could help you heal through it. And she gives a very psychological reason why she's said it's not like, oh, I'm jealous or oh this or that. It's like no, this is a big trauma event and I should be here for you. That's what relationships are. And my girl Harley never misses the mark.
No.
But being the awesome girlfriend she is, she comes and supports Ivy anyway. Ivy goes into the green, and this guy starts attacking her. Harley goes to check on her while she's meditating in the green. You see all these tentacles, and you see her getting messed up. She calls Frank. Frank goes into the green. They both face off against this guy. He tells Harley she's got to torch the body. Harley finds him after running across a sex experiment, and then just sex. That's so funny. Like she comes, the sex experiment is these two guys having sex, and they're timing. All right, 17 minutes until orgasm, and then she's like, "I like whatever you're doing here." And then she goes to the next one. She goes, "Another sex experiment," and you just hear, "No, we're just having sex."
It's like, oh, okay.
Like I missed grad school. So then she finds the body, and she has like this hand saw or this electric knife, and she starts cutting into him. He attacks her, and she just fucking destroys him. Like there's no, it's Harley Quinn. Come on,
really. Yeah, it's basically just a domination of a fight, squash fight for wrestling fans.
And then she saves Ivy and Frank get out of the green. They get the Brainiac tubes or drones that are patrolling Metropolis come in. They think they're coming there to sort of arrest them, and nope, they're captured and brought to Brainiac.
Yeah, that's that should lead to some interesting stuff going forward, right? Poison Ivy, Harley, and Brainiac.
Yes, and Harley Quinn version of Brainiac. Like we have seen, like if Brainiac is anything like the Kite Man version of Darkseid, I'm so in already.
Oh yeah, the Harley Quinn version of Brainiac should be completely batshit crazy and nothing like what we've seen before.
Absolutely. No, and I'm so excited to see their take on it. I kind of love this strikes me as a bit of a nod to the Red Sun, which is my favorite Superman comic book. Because I don't know if you've ever read it, Ed, but in Red Sun, like something similar happens where like Clark Kent or Superman uses this Brainiac technology to patrol the Soviet Union, and Brainiac winds up like betraying him and using it to try to enslave everyone. And it kind of seems like that's what's going on. Because if we remember last episode, 2 episodes ago, like Superman is like, I have no place here. These things do all the work.
Yeah, he goes on his vacation, basically the way to like write him out for the season, so they don't have to deal with Flash and Superman everywhere all the time.
Exactly.
I saw the animated. I saw the animated movie of Red Sun. I didn't actually read Red Sun though.
Okay.
So
it's the same. It's the same thing. It's I saw the animated. It's really faithful to the source material.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the A plot. Anything you want to sort of revisit in the A plot before we get to my favorite plot point in this?
No, because I fully agree with you. I was admittedly a bit more invested in the B plot this time, honestly, with Clayface and Bane.
We get 2 of my favorite villains in this show. So the B plot is Clayface puts on a one-man show about Hiroshima, set 20 years before the attack, centering on an Italian villager living in Italy. And
who had nothing to do with Hiroshima.
Who had nothing to do with Hiroshima, yeah. And at one point, Clayface, in this terribly offensive Italian accent, is like, I wonder what's happening. And by the way, I am being specifically offensive here. I'm not trying to do an Italian accent, right? It's like, I wonder what's happening in Hiroshima. I don't know. Probably nothing. Let me go pick up my grapes. Like, it's so terrible.
It's really bad. It's
Oh, but it's so funny. So Clayface is really excited to get the newest Daily Planet to see how his show was received. it's panned, and he has this great thing where he opens the front page and it's the guy Jason who was murdered, and it just says, scientists killed in freak accidents. He goes, so I didn't make the first page. Save the best for last. And it's one of those gags where it's like, this show is amazing at making you want to die. The only thing worse than this show is the casting, but it sets up like it's going to say something nice, and then it says something bad. And he goes, "Well, I got to go talk to the editor. They're going to print a retraction." And so he goes to talk to Perry White, who's like, literally tells him, "Fuck you! I heard it was awful. Get out of my office." He says, if you want to write it, the only way this is going to get a good review is if you write it. He goes, great idea. And he cracks the screen through, puts Perry's head through the screen, kidnaps him, takes him to this shitty apartment he's living, which when Bane gets there, because he calls Bane for literary experience, he goes, I wanted to get a literary giant, but I decided I would settle for a literal giant.
Asshole.
And, my God, they need to put these two. How did these two not get screen time like this before? They are the perfect pairing in this.
I don't know, but I also am glad that and I don't know if we talked about this during Kite Man. I'm glad they didn't give Clayface or Bane their own spin-off, because I think they're probably gold in small doses like this. Or not, like they got more screen time now, but like a whole show revolving around them would kind of kill the joke, I think.
I agree. No, I agree, because then it's just them. They're great, like, as side characters. They are like the perfect side characters and foils to like Ivy and Harley and Kite Man.
Yeah, exactly.
So Bane on this tiny typewriter, which he keys, like, the keys keep jingling together, and I don't know how young our viewership is. I am old enough to remember actually typing on a typewriter because I'm a fucking fossilhead, and that happened. Yeah, we're the same age. I mean,
exactly. We're there. I remember the typewriters too, and I fucking hated them because the keys would always get stuck, and you had to like hold them up. Oh my God, it was a mess. Like, listen, if you're younger, if you're watching and you never had to deal with a typewriter, then fucking kudos to you, because they were a total disaster. I fucking hated it.
Yeah, it was so bad. And Bane is feeling that pain. And I love Clayface is like, I love the loving care with which you wrote about your hemorrhoid condition. I need that kind of keen grammatical observation on my in my work. It's so funny. And then Clayface turns into Perry White with the fucked up Clayface teeth, because that's always how you know it's Clayface.
Yeah.
And him and Bane go to the Daily Planet, and he hires Bane and puts him in the cubicle with Lois Lane, we find out. And Bane, of course, best line of the episode, I have questions about this dental plan. Does it cover adult braces?
Bane's obsession with the most mundane things in life is fucking priceless, because it never stops.
It's fucking pitch perfect. That's what makes the character so funny and so brilliant in this, because he's hyper focused on these mundane things that you don't even think about in the context of comic book stuff.
No, not at all. He basically covers all of it, like this random shit.
Oh, never forget the pasta maker. Oh, that was the best.
No, that's going to be hard to top, ever.
Yeah. And so then Lois is like, there are drones in the sky, and people are disappearing, and people are seeing floating skulls. It's all just the tip of the iceberg. And he tells her, this is of course Clayface's Perry White, a reporter's job is not to ask questions; it is to highlight obscure local community theater. and that's pretty much the episode. It's hysterical. I don't know how the show continues to be so funny in this 5th season, but it really is like it's not slowing down, and I'm very happy for it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on that. It still is funny. It cracks me up. I will say, especially with the stuff we covered this week and things like we're gonna be covering because Jesus, we're gonna have 3 shows starting next week. Um,
Yikes!
it is
Holy
Yeah, I
shit!
know it's a lot. Um, this is definitely kind of like a somewhat of a palate cleanser because it is so starkly different than the other things that we're covering, like currently at least. It is
Yes,
so different.
yeah, yeah. Because Spider-Man is serious-ish. This comedic, but
Yeah,
Spider-Man, is what it is. And
exactly.
these cat movies, man, I didn't realize how socially prescient and serious these cat movies are. Like, so yeah, this is a stark difference in everything we're covering.
Yeah, which is nice. I mean, again, for our
I
purposes,
agree.
it's definitely nice to switch it up a little bit. All right,
I
so we'll see
agree.
what's going on with Harley next week with episode 3, and that will take us over to the Marvel side of things for the debut of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which dropped on Wednesday on Disney Plus. Um, it is a really interesting release schedule because this is 10 episodes over 4 weeks, and the
Oh,
premiere dropped 2. Weeks 2 and 3 will drop 3 and 3, and then the finale is 2 episodes. I don't know why they. Oh
shit.
well, I mean, right after that is it kind of leads us right into Daredevil. That's probably why,
Okay,
because I think
there
they
you go.
have a lot of shows
That's
this
why.
year. Maybe that's why. Um,
Yeah.
but I will say, and again, for those who have watched us, we got that spoiler ticker, by the way. We're going to be talking about this very spoilery. So I guess the overall consensus, Jason and I are both huge Spider-Man fans, right? Like, I think you might
Yes.
be able to tell, as I am pretty excited for this show. I went all Spider-Man today with my attire here, and behind me is always a bunch of Spider-Man. Um, this show is one of the many animated series. I mean, I didn't watch like the Spectacular Spider-Man and stuff like that, so I kind of skipped that one. I felt like that one was more like kid friendly, like aimed more towards like the younger demographic. This show is kind of, I don't know. This show, I think this one's more of a broader target audience. Like it can be, I don't feel it's
Yeah.
like too child, but like, I meant to ask you, like, did Finn watch this with you, or no, or did you watch this on your own?
I watch this on my own because I usually do my watching at night
Okay,
after he's asleep.
okay,
It's after watching it, it's something that I would let him watch if he wanted to. Like if
yeah,
like uh, but honestly, if I were watching it with him, I wouldn't be able to pay as much attention as I should.
okay. Oh, I was just gonna ask because I'm curious to know, like, is his Spider-Man more of like Spidey and his amazing friends type thing?
Yeah,
Is he still that?
that's
Okay, okay,
yeah. He loves his my spin, which is what they call Miles Morales' Spider-Man.
yeah,
In that, I get to differentiate because there is Spider-Man. Um, like it's Spin and Ghost Spider are his favorites.
okay, all right,
Yeah,
that
so
makes
like
sense.
he likes Peter Parker, but those are his favorites. So that like until they show up in one of these things, he's only going to be like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just kind of curious with that. But yeah, overall, I think the show it was a smart decision to have it as episodes 1 and 2 together because I do feel like these are very much set up episodes for what we're gonna get
Yeah,
moving forward. And that's not in a knock in a way because I enjoyed the show. I like the start. I like the animation style. I'm very much into it. I like the Steve Ditko, but kind of modern take on on that's kind of how the show feels like me. It's a modern OG Spider-Man kind of thing, like the way Peter looks with the glasses and everything, but it's more of a modern day in it. What did you think?
yeah. It's more than like the Tom Holland Spider-Man that we get. I mean, he kind of we get the hot Aunt May. I so as always, as everyone who follows the show regularly knows, it takes at least 3 episodes of an animated show to get me. And this is not any different. Like I liked what I saw, but I wasn't over the moon about it. I There were things I definitely liked about it. I really enjoyed. I actually really enjoyed the twist that the jock who asks his girlfriend, the girl that he has a crush on,
Pearl.
out is actually a super nice guy, and not an asshole or a bully at all. And they kind of all like realize, oh no, I like this guy. Like that moment where he wants to work with Peter Parker, he's like, and Nico Minoru's in this, which that's fucking wild to me. I don't know much about her, but I know that she's a character, like she's an MCU character, a Marvel character.
She's with the Runaways.
But so there you go. So I thought that was cool. I like their friendship. I like the whole like, no, I want you to be a partner because I want to learn because you're a brilliant guy, and I like that they set this up to be a rivalry. And we know about Spider-Man, the war, and Spider-Man's usually bullied and stuff. And I like that they went away from that. I like that. No, this isn't a bully. This is just someone who is a jock, but also a good guy and has issues at home. Has what's going on at home, and so I the characters I really dug. I'm not sold on the Spider-Man stuff yet, but again, as you said, this is set up. So, and I'm even admitting I need to give it another episode before I can really make a decision because I also have a bias against animated stuff. I will say this, and I'm going to preface it by saying it's not the reason that most people are going to complain about this. I don't like the way Norman Osborn looks.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's black. I don't give a shit about that. I think the way they the way they put his hair and they put him in a very specific type of green. I got Sandman vibes, and that threw me off. Like he reminded me of the Sandman, and because the Sandman in the comic is a very similar. It's the green, and he has very similar hair, and this is Spider-Man. So I was like, and then he became Norman Osborn. I'm like, all right, but I kind of wish they would have. I don't know. I wish they would have done something different to make him stand out more. But again, nothing to do with the fact that he's black. All to do with the fact that he's wearing green.
I was gonna say actually, I thought his hair was. I kind of thought his hair was more traditional Norman Osborn hair from the comic, where there's those weird lines and yada yada.
Yeah,
I mean, I was actually fun of it. Yeah, I mean, the green suit, I guess, was to slap you in the face. Like obviously, I mean, if you weren't aware, it's fucking Green Goblin. Like he's gonna be eventually at some point. So I guess let's take it to we'll go through episode 1 quickly because again these are setup episodes, but I did like the fact that this show makes nods to the MCU, but it is not the MCU prequel series because originally it was supposed to be Spider-Man freshman year, and that's what we were getting. We thought we were getting the missing part of Tom Holland's story, but honestly, this flips that on its head because. It's not. This is clearly not the MCU, and it's fine. This is another universe that's here, but there are nods there, like when Peter initially is late and he's running, to school and stuff, and Aunt May has to come over and pick him up. And like you said, the younger looking Aunt May is more like MCU Tom Holland, vibe to it. They've got the Iron Man air freshener in the car, which I thought was cool. That shows that he's obviously a fan and Iron Man exists in this universe. We get Uncle Ben is gone. But they don't say he's dead. So I'm not really sure about that part. I'm kind of curious to know if he's dead or he's not.
I mean, I'm kind of assuming he is because, but I don't know. Who knows? Because Peter has his powers, and usually that means Uncle Ben is gone or dead. But if he's gone and not dead, where is he? If they turn Uncle Ben into a fucking deadbeat dad, I'll be pissed at that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know I have no idea what they would do with him if they say he's not dead and his character will come into play at some point, or if they do the Spider-Man thing and everyone close to Spidey or people that he knows typically turn into villains at some point, which I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that. I would have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, same. Initially, you saying that makes me kind of cringe. But if it's done, but if it's done well enough, But again, I'm a Spider-Man traditionalist, though. Like with the origin, like I didn't mind Uncle Ben not being a big part of the Tom Holland thing, just because we didn't do the origin story. So I can assume Uncle Ben died and he had a moment. We realized he had to kind of, stand up. And then they did in Far From Home have the great power comes with great responsibility with the death of Aunt May, and I thought that was fine. But like, if turning Uncle Ben into a villain or something like that, like I'm a traditionalist. I don't know if I'd be crazy about that.
I'm just spitballing. I'm not saying I would like it or not like it. I don't know. I was just throwing it out there. Listen, he might be dead, and they might just suddenly be saying that he's gone, and that's it. I'm just playing devil's advocate with that.
No, of course, yeah. I mean, it's something to talk about.
But speaking of traditionalists, though, Peter's in front of a school. He meets Nico there, and he gets his powers in a very different way. Like, not all right. So basically, the origin of the spider is very different, and I know there's been some chatter about this because basically Doctor Strange is battling something that looks like it's a symbiote type thing. It's not like, I don't think it's the Venom symbiote specifically, but it looks like a symbiote type creature. He's fighting him in front of the school. We get Doctor Strange. Looks like definitely traditional Doctor Strange. Has got like the big gloves and stuff like that. He sounds very much like Benedict Cumberbatch, but it's not Benedict Cumberbatch. And they fight in front of the school. Peter does a nice thing before he has his powers, though, where he does stand up for Nico there, and they just met like 5 seconds later. 5 seconds earlier. And he shows that he has like the hero in him, like the way, the thing to save someone, to do the right thing. Kind of like what we talked about Cap last week. Like before they had the powers, it was about the person. And I thought that was interesting. The fight was cool with Doctor Strange and the symbiote type thing. I guess I'll just call it that for now. But then the spider comes through the circle, basically one of Doctor Strange's circles. So you would imagine it's from like another universe or something, and latches onto Peter. And while he's introducing himself formally to Nico, he gets bit right there. And then the spider kind of just leaves. So that was a little bit different. It wasn't like a science experiment in a school or on a trip or something like that, or something like that. It was a little bit different. And I do wonder if there's going to be more to that, of the origin of the spider, where this thing came from, the radioactive spider, if it's even radioactive or not.
Yeah, I think there needs to be. I was okay with it. As a traditionalist, I was okay with it, mostly because it was still a spider. And let's face it, it's not like radioactive spider ever really made fucking sense anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, it was the 60s. We didn't know anything about radiation. Every single superhero that got their power from radiation, we know now, would be, riddled with cancer and dying, because that's what real radiation really does to you. They changed it into a genetically mutated spider for some of the movies. This is just another change, and actually kind of similar to the way Miles gets his power, at least into the Spider-Verse, right? It's a spider that comes from a different place. So I'm okay with that, but they definitely do need to pay it off. I need to know, at some point, why that happened. Like, where was that spider from? Why did it give it powers? Because at least the bullshit explanation of radioactive spider is giving me something. This is just a spider from someplace else. And as you said, this thing looks like a symbiote. So that's intrinsic to the Spider-Man lore. So and I'm sure they will, but they absolutely have to follow along.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if there's going to be more to that payoff there. But again, it's like we're talking about traditional Spider-Man. I'm fine with it. It doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, I would like some sort of a background to exactly why that choice was made. So then we get Peter. Months later, it fast forwards. He's late again for his train, but this time he opens up the bag and it's not a sandwich or the oatmeal that Aunt May packed for him. He has the Spider-Man suit, and he's been Spider-Manning for a few months and stuff. And we get to see the suit that he has, that it's very much gadgety and stuff, and he's got like these big wires and tubes to feed his web slinger. And I thought it was cool. I mean, it was a nice idea. Like, that's what somebody who didn't have anything like Peter has is he would just build this from scratch. And he's got his whole thing. And he's got his cover. He's wearing like a hockey jersey with a spider on it and stuff like that. Like it's definitely the homemade Spider-Man suit. And he saves, we get to see his first save. And it turns out to be Harry Osborn, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yes.
So they were not previously best friends and nothing like that. Like he meets him like that. And he's getting mugged by these 3 teenagers that are trying to film it and stuff like that online or YouTube or whatever, trying to get likes and clicks, which I thought was a nice update. And he beats the crap out of them and saves the day, and then tells people not to like and not to subscribe, and then kind of
which was
moves on
fun
with his day. Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I like that. And also, I also want to point out probably my favorite part of this show so far is Queens, baby. Queens actually looks like Queens. These people actually know what fucking Queens looks like. Look, anyone listening knows we are both Queens boys. As much as I love that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I can never fucking overlook or forgive that he leaves his house in Forest Hills, and I know where that house is because it's like 2 blocks away from my ex-girlfriend's aunt's house. We were dating at the time, when the movie came out. And like turns a corner and he's on Queens Boulevard in Sunnyside catching a bus. And it's like, I get that most people outside of New York don't know that, but I am a Queens boy. It actually looked like Queens. They took their time. They did their research. So kudos to the people who Queensified this.
Yeah, I fully agree. It definitely looks like it's, it looks like it's Woodside. It definitely I got a lot of 7 Train vibes. Like in my mind, he takes the 7 Train to school and stuff. And, we also went to high school. Yeah, we went to high school right in Long Island City. So we're very familiar with what that area looks like. I did appreciate the attention to detail with that for sure. And Rick actually pointed something out that I want to say also is that it's interesting because when he swings around in Queens, he is lower. He looks like he's a bit lower to the ground than normally what we see Spider-Man, which would make sense because it's not Manhattan where you have these tall buildings where you're just spinning to random shit in the sky, which has been like the running joke in the comics for years.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like Queens is not, it's a small, a shorter place than the city of Manhattan. Yeah, I didn't even notice that, but definitely good observation by Rick.
Yeah, for sure. And then Peter meets it. We get to meet Peter's crush, Pearl, who apparently turns out was his babysitter. Also, says he talks about how they have a past, which I thought was a really funny fucking line. Because Nico points out to him, did they? I guess you guys have a history, but you guys hung out. She used to go and hang out with you. Make sure you ate your dinner and went to bed and didn't stay up too late. And did they pay her? He's like, yes. I'm like, babysitter.
Yes. Yeah, because he's like, she wasn't my babysitter. We were friends.
Yeah, exactly. That was really funny. And then let's see. We do get another cool action sequence where Spider-Man stops a truck from like a long distance and has this like crazy like web slinging thing. I thought that was there's a lot of cool action sequences throughout these first 2 episodes that I really liked.
I agree.
And you mentioned Peter also meets Lincoln, who, for those who may or may not be aware, Lincoln, of course, and I thought it was an interesting choice here because, Lincoln is actually turns out to end up being Tombstone. Eventually, like that's who Tombstone is. But I don't like to make him this tied to Peter. I thought was an interesting choice because, as we mentioned, one of the Spider-Man tropes is any friends or people around him seem to turn out to be his villains, which adds to another layer to the relationship that he has when he's Spider-Man versus Peter Parker. So I thought that was pretty cool. But you're right, he's not. It's cool that he's the jock and everything, but is pretty damn smart. And him and Peter work together. I thought that was cool.
And I'm excited to see what happens when he eventually does become Tombstone, if that's the way they're going, because Tombstone traditionally is usually just like he's a hired thug, right? He doesn't have like
Yeah.
this interesting backstory.
No.
So I'm interested, and Tombstone is one of these guys that his powers, he's invulnerable. Like he's got rock skin, and this kid clearly has some like emotional things going on. So I like the setup of we're gonna give you a good-hearted kid with some emotional stuff going on, and eventually make him a villain encased in fucking granite skin. Because symbolically, I just think that's cool. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here for that for sure.
Yeah, and we get to see Lonnie's background a little bit. We know he lives in Harlem. He goes and takes the train to 125th Street, and we see some cops roll by him. They're kind of profiling him and everything, and we get to see his home life and everything. He's like has a little brother. He has a family. He wants to do the right thing. He's a generally like a good dude. It seems like which adds to more of like when he becomes Tombstone. There will be a tragic story of how he becomes Tombstone, and obviously he will end up being a villain. So again, layering the villains and stuff, and like just mentioned, the hardened skin thing I think is a cool way to do this. Another thing I wanted to point out is we also get to see Spidey stop a person from stealing money from a pizzeria, and he chooses to give this person a second chance because he's just like, hey, they're kind of hard in their luck, it's not their fault and stuff like that. I thought that was very fascinating, and also showing more to Peter Parker as the character of who he is. He convinces the store owner to do it, and he gets his money back and everything. And she's like, I apologize, I'm sorry, I just saw the money, I'm desperate and stuff like that. And Peter even says, hey, like, just don't make me regret this. And that's fine, because he knows he can probably go ahead and stop this person again easily if they commit another crime. But I thought that was a really telling scene.
No, I did too, and I think it's interesting because usually when we get superhero movies or shows, it's very black and white, good guy, bad guy, right? And that's not how it is in the real world. Sometimes good people steal because they have to, because they're desperate, because you got to feed your family or whatever. It's not all black and white, right? There's a lot of gray area. I think it's interesting that they were willing to explore that. It's like, I'm not going to let you commit this crime because that's wrong. But I'm also not going to make the assumption that you are a terrible person simply based on the fact that you were committing this crime, because there are these other circumstances. And I think I really did appreciate that. And I also think that's foreshadowing for what might happen with Lonnie / Tombstone, right? Like, I think when he breaks bad, I think part of what Peter's going to try to do is reform him and bring him back to his old self or whatever. And I think if that's where they're going, this was a beautiful way to set that up.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting character moment that was there. And then the episode ends right after that, though, which is where what I thought was really cool, that they went ahead and you get basically a shot-for-shot retelling in animated form of Spider-Man and Peter Parker's introduction in Captain America Civil War, honestly, which is ironic that it's next week that we'll be talking about that. When they're playing the same music, he's listening to the same music as he walks in to his apartment and everything like that. And again, shot for shot he finds this DVD player in a garbage can in the dumpster, which is perfectly brand new. And he references that in Civil War when he's talking to Aunt May. And he goes in the apartment. It plays out just about exactly the same. But then instead of Tony Stark in his apartment, that's when we get Norman Osborn. Which I thought was really interesting. Because most people were probably like, oh, this is where he meets Tony Stark and stuff. And we're going from there. And no, it flips it on its head. And we get his arch nemesis in Norman Osborn. His future arch nemesis.
Yeah. Which I like that, because and that's part of what I liked about the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And I don't know if I don't think it's this way in the comics, but maybe it is. I have read a lot of the older runs of Spider-Man. But I like the idea that Norman Osborn is his mentor, right? Is the person who sees his potential and wants to give him the leg up. Because again, like, they're going to become arch enemies. if you know anything about Spider-Man, well, I don't think we're doing it here, but Norman Osborn is probably the worst villain Spider-Man faces off because he kills his fucking girlfriend. Like, never forget, Norman Osborn murders Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
Yes. And so I think
besides other twisted shit in the comics, but yes.
Yeah, no. I'm just like that. I think that's the worst of it. Like, and I love the idea of my former mentors now my villain. They do a very similar thing with Doctor Octopus in the first Spider-Man PlayStation game. They have Otto be his mentor, only to flip it and become his villain. And I just think, especially because Spider-Man is such a young character, that it works so well. There's so much you can do there by having the older mentor who teaches you everything he knows and gets you to be where you are, only for you to have to sort of thwart them because they've gone rogue.
Yeah, and they do that in the films, right? Like Norman is Norman's enamored with Peter in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, right? Like he definitely sees him as kind of like the son he never had, really, over Harry.
Yeah, I mean, he's somewhat of a scientist himself.
Exactly. And in Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock, Octavius, is mentoring him a bit and also takes a liking to Peter to only be, the villain again. These shit happens to Peter that's the Parker luck, right? That is the Parker luck of what it keeps happening. And what I loved about Spider-Man No Way Home in the MCU is that they found a way to bring Green Goblin and bring Norman Osborn to come back and still do the worst thing imaginable to Peter in that movie by killing Aunt May. From another fucking universe, they still found a way to make it true. So, yeah, the history with Norman Osborn is just that's the arch nemesis. Say what you will about Venom being the evil Spider-Man and stuff like that, but it's just, Oh, we got double Summer Soldier there for a second.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to do this on my phone, and something's just messing up. Just keep talking. I can hear you. I'm just gonna try to relink to my
all good. So that's basically the end of episode 1. That's where we wrap up there, and it leads us into episode 2, where it picks up that scene right away, and Norman offers him an internship at Oscorp. So obviously Peter's excited about that. He can't wait to get going with it. And he, at the same time, Lonnie is inviting him to the football game that they have at the school. And then now you start to get the struggle of duality with Peter doing for himself and also for his friends and stuff like that are there. So, he goes ahead and he's talking to Nico and stuff like that. Their friendship is going on. And we get a nice Roxanne reference because she's like, oh, well, Norman Osborn's a bad guy. What are you going to do? Like start working at Roxanne and stuff like that? And for those who know, in Marvel Comics, Roxanne is this evil oil company and stuff like that that's behind a lot of different shit. So I thought that was cool to set that up. And then Peter makes the brief appearance at the football game, goes to Oscorp to start his internship. Of course, he's a few minutes late. We get to see that throughout. Peter is always late to a lot of shit, not because he's a dick, but because he has Spider-Man. He has other obligations. He's always juggling tons of shit going on. And he meets a room full of other interns there. And one of the professors that's there is Carla Connors, who you imagine is not Kurt Connors. There was a gender swap, basically, situation here, which is fine. Again, I don't care. Worked for me just fine in the Spider-Verse movies when they did it with Doc Ock. Who cares? And there's a Stark reactor reference, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I thought that was cool, the Stark reactor. And especially, I do whatever you want with these characters, like, especially because this is an alternate timeline, right? We've already established that this is in the MCU proper. So, and that's, like you said, it's the Spider-Verse. It's the same deal. This is an alternate Doc Ock, and it's a woman because in the alternate timeline she's a woman. Okay, who gives a shit? I'm interested. I am interested to see what they're going to do with the lizard. I mean, clearly, right? We're going to get a lizard. We have to. You give me a Connors, a one-armed Connors. You got to give me the lizards.
Yeah, they've set up. You got Green Goblins in play. We know from trailers, Doc Ock is going to be coming into the mix in the season. Lizard is already set up here. We got Tombstone. I mean, the Spider-Man villains and different characters are all being set up around Peter, very, very early. And that's fine. Like the world is the world for this cartoon, for this animated series is being established here. Doctor Strange exists, Iron Man exists. We find out Norman Osborn took a picture with Captain America, so he exists. So again, world building is happening pretty quickly here. But he also meets a group of kids, other interns. One is from Wakanda. That's there. So again, you're establishing that. So therefore, you would imagine Black Panther exists and T'Challa exists in this universe. At some point, we also get his name is slipping my mind right now. I'm trying to pull it up right here. He's also one of the people who turns into the Hulk at some point, which I thought was actually extremely interesting. That they brought him into it.
I didn't clock this.
Yeah. Is it Griffin? Acted? Yeah, it's the kind of like cocky kid that's in out of the interns.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one who becomes a Hulk, not like Bruce Banner, obviously, but like he is a Hulk at some point. So I thought that was interesting to kind of Easter egg that one in there. But Peter has to like leave the internship at a point because he hears an alert. They're watching TV and they see on the news that there's a fire. So he leaves. He makes this lame excuse that he has to like go to the bathroom / go. Connors even tries to cover up for him. She sent him out for supplies. He leaves. He runs into this character named Butane, who is lighting this whole building on fire, bragging about how he's paid to do so. But then they find out he was on 52nd Street when he was supposed to be on 51st Street and is burning down the wrong fucking building. But then takes it out on Peter.
Funny.
That was actually pretty funny.
That was, yeah.
And they have their fight. Their fight spills across the street into this pet shop. Peter's trying to save guinea pigs. He saves a corgi dog. He's saving everything there. He's Peter trying to do the right thing in the face of battling a fucking villain. And he ends up taking him down, taking down a fish tank. And of course, even is trying to save the fish after he knocks him out, which I thought was actually really cool. Again, the characterization of Peter Parker in this is so fucking spot on. It's great.
Yeah.
It's what I love about the character.
Absolutely.
But then when he returns to Oscorp, he gets pulled into, Norman's office because Norman wants to see him. Sends a security guard who wants to see him. Everyone is giving him last rites, basically, like he's fucking toast. Even the Wakanda girl is like, it was nice knowing you, even though we had our short time together. I'll never forget. And then the other girl's like, you know something? I will forget you. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
I thought that was funny. And he goes in, and then Norman flips around the screen and shows him security footage of him changing into his Spider-Man suit. It's
because he did it.
You're Spider-Man.
He did it in the stairway.
Yes. Well, it shows you young Peter Parker, who's been at this for months, doesn't know any better.
Absolutely. And I also thought it was super smart because, of course they have cameras in the stairway. Well, it makes sense. I mean, I love that moment. That reveal was super cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. Actually, that's where we get. So that's like I said. Like, the things I love about these episodes is and yes, I probably will be a little biased again because it's Spider-Man, but I will also call it tough when I think it needs to get there. Because I will be a little extra critical about it. Is they established Peter. I like the fact that they've got Peter nailed down perfectly. It's a young Peter Parker in high school years, which is always a lot of fun to get into his high school years. And they're establishing the world building that they do in these 2 episodes. I like a lot. They've established a lot of the characters. I still think it's a very interesting choice to bring Lonnie Lincoln into his friend circle. So I thought that was cool. And I'm excited.
Yeah, I talking about this, I realized I think I liked it more than I realized. I'm interested to see where it goes. I definitely am. And again, you got everyone watching this to keep in mind, and I'm talking to myself as well here. That this is, even though it's not Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man, it is more based on that than the traditional comic. Because key difference, and this something I love about Spider-Man that isn't here, but it's also not the Tom Holland one really, so it's fine. Is the whole like Uncle Ben puts him on his course, or some tragedy puts him on his course, right? And you don't really get that here, and but you also don't get that in the Tom Holland one until maybe Far From Home or No Way Home rather, which is the third movie. So it's a different take and a more updated take on the character, but I think what they've given us here works, and I am looking forward to seeing what they do in the next 3 episodes. I guess we're watching for next week.
Yeah, they drop 3 episodes next week, 3 episodes the week after that, and then the season finale. Because this show has already gotten officially 3 seasons greenlit. They are really
all right.
Yeah. Marvel Animation is very boastful about this show because they initially got it going for 2 seasons, and season 3 was greenlit like last week. So they feel pretty good about what they got.
No, that's good. They should. I mean, this is interesting, and I think Marvel Animation is there's a lot of potential. We know they killed X-Men '97. This has gotten off to a good start, and they did give us one really good season of What If. So I'm excited to see what comes from this, because as much as I'm not a big animation guy, anyone who listens who knows that if it's good enough, I will come around. I did on Invincible. I did on every other animated show we've done. It just always takes me a call. If you remember Creature Commandos, I wasn't crazy about that the first 2 episodes either, and I wound up loving that show.
Yeah, I agree, and I think as we've done this, like I've always enjoyed animated shows, but yes, as an adult, I was just watching the DC animated movies and animated movies per se. The shows I had fallen off a lot with, but once we started doing this, it was like, all right, let's dive back into it. And I try kind of, at this point, to tell you the truth, I kind of treat them as regular shows. At this point, like for me, live action animation, I'm fine with it as long as you give me something interesting. And if your target audience is like children, then yes, I will probably veer off a little bit, but as long as you give me something to chew on here with this, and this does. If you're a Spider-Man fan, I would recommend this show and check this out. We'll see where it goes, but it's definitely got my attention for sure.
Yep, same.
All right, so that brings us to our movie of the week as we continue our countdown through the MCU Captain America movies as we lead up to Captain America Brave New World in a few weeks. That brings us to the second film in this run, which is Captain America the Winter Soldier. I've spoken about it on this show before. Yeah. I have a history with this movie, which is interesting. But, man, this movie, wow. This fucking movie hits every single time I've ever seen it.
I mean, I think there's a distinction between a good movie and a good comic book movie, right? Mm-hmm. You can be a good comic book movie, and that's fantastic. But let's take Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's actually one of my favorites in the MCU. But if I were talking to someone who's a big movie fan but not a comic book fan, I wouldn't say they should watch Guardians of the Galaxy because it's a great comic book movie, right? You have to kind of really buy into the comic book stuff to get from that what you're going to get from it, in my opinion. This is just a great fucking movie. I would actually say, and I'll be honest, this is maybe only the second time I've rewatched it. Or I've seen it 3 times.
Okay.
And that's on me, man. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually happy because I got to re-experience it. I forgot a lot of stuff. And so it was kind to like I was watching it for the first time, even though I knew generally where it was going. But I would put this up there with The Dark Knight. And that's fucking a phenomenal movie in the sense that that's a movie that you don't need to necessarily love comic books to appreciate the filmmaking and the movie. And this is a phenomenal action movie. Like, take Captain America, take the suit out, and it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I fully agree, man. And this movie, by many, is considered to be still the greatest MCU movie. This is a lot of people's number one. A lot of people.
It's mine
for best movie for sure.
It's definitely mine.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as I was rewatching this, and I think at this point, when it came out, I would say I was unquestionably there. The only movies I would say I would put in the same category, I don't know, maybe Infinity War and Endgame or something like that. Like, it would take that level. Maybe, but I don't know. Like, it's tough because those are Avengers movies and those are big, huge spectacle movies.
Yeah.
This movie, it's a big movie, but it's also, you're right. It is a spy film, political spy film, and it's wild that this is when the MCU gives you different things within its own franchise, right? Like we talked about it. That's one of my favorite things I love about the MCU is that you get different styles of film within the actual franchise within itself. And this one is drastically different than anything else that we get before or after, at least to date.
Yeah, agreed. And I was listening to a podcast that did the history of Captain America. And for those who are interested, it's called Wizard and the Bruiser. Definitely check it out. They did a really good deep dive of the history of the character and how it came to be. But what I learned from that was this is kind of what the comic book becomes after a certain point, where it's like Captain America fighting corruption in the government and like subverting, like, everyone decries now, Anthony Mackie made these comments about Captain America not being, completely American or whatever the fuck he said, and they got pissed off. And we're in a very weird, jingoistic time in our country where, not being American is evil. But, what it made me realize is this movie is actually what the comic book Captain America is about. It's about standing up for ideals that America was built on and should reflect, but doesn't always, and trying to bring that. And that's exactly what this movie is. And watching this movie and listening to that podcast made me go, you know what? I think I need to give Cap a little attention. I need to go back and read some choice runs from him. Because this movie is just fucking amazing. And if this is what they were doing in the Captain America comics, I was missing out.
Yeah, we talked about it last week that I didn't really come around to Cap in the comics really until Civil War. When I read Civil War, I was like, oh, all right. You mentioned last week this guy, I always thought this guy was a Streisand, but he's fucking kicking the shit in this movie. And this was it, because we get a lot of super badass moments throughout this film. Like, these are the most badass of Cap, or maybe even any character in the MCU at all. I
texted you and Rick last night as I was watching it. The most badass thing anyone in the MCU has ever said, in my opinion, is when Cap is in that elevator. And I also love, like, he's not fucking brawn. He's smart. He clocks that there's something wrong, that they're filling this up. He knows they're about to attack him, and he goes, before we begin, anyone want to get off? Like he knows that he's going to fucking destroy these guys, and that's what he's telling them. Like, I'm going to give you a chance to run, and I won't. I'll give you the option. And then, of course, he fucking destroys these guys in the elevator. Oh my! Like, name me a badass moment in the MCU.
It's tough. I mean, when I read that from you, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, what are some of them? And a lot of them are by Cap, to be completely honest with you. But there were some others I was thinking of. But man, that is something, because, like you mentioned, the way he clocks the guy sweating this guy gripping his gun a little bit like he's ready to go, and how many big motherfuckers keep getting on this damn elevator every single floor. He knows exactly what's up. And it also speaks to Steve Rogers at this point in time where he's come. Remember how far he's come from the kid in the alleyway who can do this all day with the garbage can to now. Because Steve Rogers in this movie is a complete, super confident fucking badass. And he knows it now.
Yeah.
Like, he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has the ultra confidence. And he fucks those dudes up. And they are trained SHIELD agents that he is packed in there with, who also have tasers, who have guns, who have those handcuff things, and he wipes the floor with them. Proceeds to jump out of the moving elevator from God knows how many feet down, uses the shield to break his fall. But then, Jason, that's not enough. He jumps on a motorcycle, takes a fucking armed Quinjet head on here with just his shield, and takes it down and keeps going.
Yeah. Fucking amazing. Like, the action in this movie is so amazing. He's just so fucking badass. But also, like, it's not just that he's badass. He's smart and
calculating,
compassionate, and calculating. But also the compassion is part of it, right? I mean, we're jumping around, but when you get to the end with him and Bucky, and I know we'll talk about it more, but like when he says to Bucky, "Don't make me do this," and they have the fight, he chokes him out, and he does his mission. He finishes the mission, and Bucky's gonna kill him. He's like, "You're not gonna kill me." And Cap's fucking ready to die right there. Cap's done his mission. He's ready to die. That's the compassion part. I think that adds to the badass. It's one thing to be like a Punisher guy or a Hulk guy where you smash, you kill, you do this. You could do some cool action. But when you can do all that awesome action, and at that point, you can take the Winter Soldier. There's no fucking doubt.
Yeah.
But it's not what he's about. He was about the mission, and now he's about the compassion and the personal relationship and bring his friend back. And I mean, there is just something to be said about that combination. I think that is what Captain America is, at least in the MCU, because I haven't delved into the comics a lot, but I'm assuming that is in the comics as well. And man, what a fucking ultimate picture of an action hero. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's to everything I've read with Captain America, and I've read other stuff besides Civil War. There is a lot of that. Like, this encapsulates the character of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and again, like you said, what Captain America is about. And I do want to comment on the Anthony Mackie situation in a minute, in a little bit, but yeah, it is what everything is about. So speaking of Mackie, though, like, this movie also brings Falcon into it, and the way that they meet in the beginning of this, I think,
on your left,
it's still an all-time thing. And again, just looking back on it now, we know the payoff of On Your Left, right? Like, we know.
Yeah.
And it leads to arguably the biggest MCU line of all time to date, right? Like, that signifies in Endgame that everyone's back, like, and the reaction that Cap gives and stuff. But this is where it originates, and they hit it off immediately, right? Like, Cap has another, because Bucky's not around at this point, so he meets his kind of like new BFF, his modern day BFF in a way. When they're running around and he's doing laps around and stuff, and it's On Your Left, and he meets Sam Wilson, and Sam is at the time working in he's not really active military. He is
works in the VA, right?
Yeah, he works in the VA, and he's doing like consultation with like veterans, which also inspires Steve Rogers. In a blip, he does that.
I was going to bring that up. I didn't fucking realize that it was foreshadowed so early on. When I was watching this last night, and he goes to the meeting, and Anthony Mackie, Falcon, is pretty much running this grief council for these veterans who saw some shit and who lost some shit. They directly mirror that when Cap is running the, you got to move on from losing our loved ones after the blip. It's like the parallelism of character from here and Endgame is just, again, it's so well thought out and so well written.
Yeah, it's tremendous. It really is. And kudos to the Russo brothers, because this is also, by the way, this was their introduction to the MCU. Before this,
Ooh, what
they
an
only did
introduction.
they were only Parks and Rec directors, like, who did episodes of TV.
Really?
Yeah, that's all. This was their feature film debut.
I'm wondering if they did Community only because Danny Pudi is in this movie, and I didn't realize that until I watched it again. And he was Abed on Community. Now that you say that they were TV directors, that makes a lot of sense. They were just kind of like, hey, Danny Pudi, I'm going to put you in this movie real quick.
Yeah, so it is, and obviously the Russo brothers were game changers, right? Like, their resume now is Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Obviously, they were bringing them back to do Secret Wars, Avengers Secret Wars, and Avengers Doomsday.
I hope so.
No, they did. That's like officially.
Oh, they did?
No, they
awesome.
did. That's officially
fantastic.
Official, so.
Fantastic.
And I know there were rumors recently about them maybe after that having something to do with X-Men, but I don't know. We'll see where that goes. So you had mentioned also, Jason, Steve's list in this movie, because
the list, which I took a screenshot of it.
Yes, I have it pulled up on the side also.
Oh, all right, awesome, do it.
So, hold on, let me see if I can get a version to actually put up on here, because this was like there were things that were like trying to shit on it. Oh,
and I love that he puts Marvin Gaye on it, which is what we opened with. That was what Falcon tells him to put on his list. And I was looking at that list. Let me know when you got it, because now I'm just killing time for you.
No. I have the list, but I can't seem to get a screenshot of it to pull up on our screen. I keep on trying to do that, and oh wait, hold on. Here we go. No,
all right.
small. It's just a thing, but I can read it off. It's fine.
Okay.
So the Rogers list here is so it's I Love Lucy, Moon Landing, Berlin Wall, Steve Jobs, Disco, Thai food, Star Wars / Trek ? Nirvana () band, Rocky (Rocky 2 ? And he's adding Trouble Man soundtrack to it.
Yeah, I love that list. All right, so I texted you last night that I wanted to discuss what you would add to that list. How did no one tell the man to add the Beatles to that list? Come on, man. Steve Rogers needs to listen to the Beatles.
Yeah, it's you know what's funny? Like, I personally acknowledge what the Beatles have done, but I'm not personally a Beatles fan. I like a couple of their songs, but I'm not going to act like I'm like this huge Beatles guy or whatever. But man, looking at his list, Thai food I probably would have put on his list, because I think that's I like a little bit of Thai food.
That's
Star
great.
Wars, yeah, Star Wars. I would have probably Nirvana, another recommendation. I don't know. I would go further in the Rocky series if I were him.
Oh, he needs to go to at least 4.
I would venture. I would even tell him go through 1 through 4, skip 5, and then go to Rocky Balboa, because I love Rocky Balboa.
That is a good one. Yeah. I mean, fuck it. Didn't do Creed. You might as well just do Creed, then. I mean,
well, I'm trying to think of at the time this happened, because yes, now I would.
Oh yeah.
I would probably
2014, right?
Yeah. Now
I would definitely tell him to put The Simpsons on the list. And I'm thinking of like culturally relevant things.
Yes. No James Bond for Steve Rogers, huh? Like, I wouldn't just say Goldfinger.
You know what? I wouldn't, just because that's his job.
Oh, okay.
He does spy shit.
Too close to home. Yeah, too close to home. Okay.
Too close to home. As a teacher, I don't like to. I never watch shit that has teachers in it. I don't like it because I as someone who does the job, I'm too distracted by clocking all of the things that aren't real, and then getting mad of how it's informing the culture about what my job is. And people have a very, very disconnected view of what teachers actually do, and I wouldn't want to put Steve Rogers through that.
All right. See, I don't know if I would recommend Nightmare on Elm Street to Steve Rogers because I'm not sure that would be his jam.
I don't think he's a horror guy.
No, I don't get that either.
I think movie. You got to give him a romance movie. I think he's a romantic at heart. You got to give him what's a good rom-com or a good really romantic movie? Because again, he's a guy from the 40s, and there was a lot of that stuff in the 40s like that. It was a lot of boy meets girl romance. So maybe a When Harry Met Sally or something like that. Yeah, but there's got to be a better one, right?
Yeah. Field of Dreams is what I would recommend. Maybe I would put on Steve Rogers' list.
Oh, he's a baseball guy. He might like that.
Right? He's a baseball guy. It's kind of like a throwback one. Maybe talk about stuff to his times, stuff like that, like Shooter Joe Jackson and everything. The whole father-son relationship with baseball. I think Steve Rogers would dig Field of Dreams.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? Just to sort of charge him up and make him feel better about the way things went down, little Inglourious Bastards.
Ooh. Okay, Inglourious Bastards. Man, that's a good pick. I like that one, Jason.
I mean, he fought in World War II, but no one had the satisfaction of putting a bullet through Hitler's fucking head. You live vicariously through Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, interesting. I guess another thing. So my pick would be, would be Field of Dreams, and kind of want to go away from a movie then. Maybe I'd recommend Bruce Springsteen to Steve Rogers.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
I can see
very American.
Yeah.
Actually, Bruce Springsteen's themes are very similar to Captain America's themes, right? It's a disillusionment with the country and the promises the country made based on the ideals that we set, right? I mean, I honestly, I think if we're trying to tailor it to his taste, I think I put Springsteen over the Beatles for him.
Okay. Well, either way, Beatles is fine because there's also things here like Thai food isn't something like you want to. I feel like the list is definitely something that you feel like he would love, but he didn't know existed. Like had no idea.
Yeah.
That it was there.
Yeah.
Like Thai food, Star Wars. Like you would know nothing of Star Wars at the time, unless somebody was trying to be funny. And after the events of the Avengers, and he fought aliens, they're like, "Hey, here's some more space stuff."
Yeah. So here's the real question. Do you think Captain America would like Star Wars more or Star Trek? Because you can like both, but I think you always innately gravitate toward one or the other, depending on your personality.
I would imagine Steve Rogers more of a Star Wars guy.
Okay, how come?
But I don't even know. I'm going to be honest. I don't even know if he would like it. Based on kind of like his taste of just stuff in general. Like, he just seems like he still is who he is, whatever he liked back then. So if he liked science fiction back then sure. But, like...
Right.
Yeah.
See, I think he'd be a Trek guy, but I think he'd be a Trek guy because he'd resonate with the hope and ideology of hope of, as a species, we all come together in the future. And because I think Star Trek is really taking, like, the American ideals and sort of putting it on a grand scale. Like, no, we can all be together. We can all do this together. We can all be in it together. And so we don't have to go to war. I think he would resonate with that. So I think but I think after a certain point he'd hate it. So I think I'd very specifically tell him to look at like the Kirk years and then TNG. And then I tell the Next Generation. And then as much as I love DS9, I'd tell him to stop. I'd be like, stop right there. You're not going to like what comes after.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to draw. We got a comment here from our buddy Bert. Just going to say,
Hey, Bert.
even with the variety and quality of movies we've had in the MCU, Winter Soldier is at the top of mine. Just love the action, the story, the score, and the overall tone. It's one I revisit a lot. Bert, I'll echo everything you just mentioned there because this movie is on. I felt like at one point it was on FX every other day, and when I had Stars, it was on every couple of hours. So I caught myself rewatching this movie a whole lot. This might be the MCU movie I've rewatched the most, to be completely honest with you, just because it was always accessible and it was always just there. And I threw it there. Not that I'm complaining about it, because it is definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite MCU film. Yeah, there's really nothing negative I have to say about this movie, like at all.
No.
And
as a matter of fact, not only I'm going to say I have not only do I have no dings against this movie, I have what I'm going to refer to as 2 negative dings. Which is what I mean by that is it actually makes me kind of upset, not upset, but kind of it dings 2 future projects for me. So like I think I kind of like Captain Marvel, the movie, which which anyone who watched our review, I actually really do like that movie.
Me too.
I gotta ding it because when Fury says, how do trust? How do you think I lost this eye? You trust the wrong people, and it's like,
Trusted
oh
the
no,
cat?
but the payoff is it was the cat. Nah, wah wah. Like it kind of wasted that setup. And then I'm gonna ding the Falcon and Winter Soldier show because that's Agent 23, right? Who becomes the fucking head
Agent
of
13.
the Agent 13, who becomes the head of the fucking mafia, right? It's like I really dug her character here, and that was her, right? Or am I
Yeah,
mistaken?
it is. It's Sharon Carter in Falcon and Winter Soldier that we see years later. Yeah, I wasn't over the moon about the choice to make her that, but they also did explain why she broke bad, and it really had nothing to do with this. But I also think she's going to end up getting a redemption arc. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw her in Brave New World, to be completely honest with you, because they do need to tie
I
up
hope
that loose end.
Yeah, I hope we do because their introduction you get to her, and then the moment that made me ding that is she's the one who steps up at the end when Cap is like, "Look, Hydra's infiltrated. I don't know who's who. Don't let them launch those planes." And when the fucking I don't know this guy's name, but I hate him so much. That the actor's so good because he makes me hate him so much. The guy who puts the gun to the head of the tech guy and tries to make him launch the planes. And she's the first to fucking pull out her gun. And I'm like, what a great moment. Like, to make her the head of the mafia, the underground criminal organization later on, I get that they did their justification. But as we don't see this character very often, I'm like, I kind of feel they squandered something really good that they set up here.
Well, it's the guy who ends up becoming Crossbones, the agent. It's Frank Grillo.
Yeah. That is Frank Grillo, and that is Crossbones. Shit, I forgot that he becomes Crossbones later.
Yeah, and he's only in the beginning of Civil War, like in the opening act, and basically he's done. Which he's even said in various interviews he was like disappointed with. He wanted to be in the MCU longer and wanted more to do with it. So I mean, he obviously dies in Civil War.
Yeah. But I mean, he is the catalyst for Civil War. Like so it sucks that he dies, and we'll talk about it next week. But he's got one of the most important deaths up until that time in the MCU because he launches that fucking movie, which launches a whole thing. The whole Sokovia Accords echoes throughout the rest of the show up until or the rest of the MCU up until we're done with Thanos.
Still, maybe even echoing now because even in some of the clips I've seen with Brave New World, they're even talking about like Thunderbolt Ross is talking about, hey, he wants to help Sam reform the Avengers, and he's like, dude, you tore them fucking apart. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Which is a great point. All right, so I did also want to touch on like the Luminaire Star mission that opens up the film when Cap goes ahead and jumps out of a fucking moving Quinn jet with no parachute. And it's fully acknowledged because even when the other dude is like, did he not have a parachute? He's like, nope.
No.
And he just jumps off. After having a casual conversation with Black Widow, with Natasha, about, because she, throughout this movie, the through line is she's trying to get him set up with a date to kind of like just help Cap out, because they've obviously become like good friends. Up until this point, like we see the evolution.
I love their friendship.
And I do love the fact that Chris Evans and ScarJo are like best friends outside of the MCU.
No shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are. So it's kind of interesting. Like you can kind of see it on screen. Like they playfully joke with each other and stuff like that.
Their chemistry is fantastic. I love like it's one of the last lines of the movie too. She's like, "Do me a favor, call that nurse." You know, and she's like, and now we know it was Agent 13 who she's talking about. And he's like, she's not a nurse. He's like, you're not a SHIELD agent. But yeah, their back and forth is great. Their friendship is great, and I love that they didn't have the romantic tension. Like I love that it was never about that. They gave him a romantic, love interest. If not that anything comes from it, but it wasn't her, and I love that because they just make such a good team, and their chemistry as friends is so fucking good.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the only time I thought there was any kind of tension at all was maybe a smidge when there's a scene, there's a thing in the middle of the movie. Well, I want to say for a minute that it seemed like there was a slight thing, but like it doesn't obviously go anywhere. And it's just Natasha doing her thing as being like she can just be anyone who you want her to be.
Oh,
that was like the whole point of that conversation. But the Luminator Star mission, though, when he jumps out without the parachute and he fucking jumps in there. And by the way, that the suit that Cap has on in this poster that's behind us, and he wears on this mission with the blue and white shield and everything, the stealth thing, that's my favorite Captain America suit throughout the MCU. It still is, even though we only really see it briefly here.
I can definitely see that. It's an awesome looking suit.
Yeah, it is. I love that. But yeah, dude, the way he's busting these guys up throughout this, and you can tell like Steve Rogers again, his training has advanced, his hand-to-hand combat skills have advanced up until this point, because the shit he's doing in here, the acrobatics, just busting dudes up throughout this whole thing is wild. And he is a one-man wrecking crew. And then like when Crossbones gets down there and Natasha joined the thing, they're coming down in these parachutes. He's wiped everything out. He's like, good to see it. It's like, yeah, like you needed us.
Yeah. That was so good. And I love that we get Backtrack the Leaper.
Such a random character, because in the comics he's very goofy and like he's like leaps throughout time and all this other shit, but they kind of like narrowed him down. They definitely like brought him in more real world-esque. And it's George St. Pierre.
They made him a terrorist, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And he also comes back in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Also briefly.
He does.
Yeah,
he does. And I have his action figure. I fucking wish I could have pulled it out of it's in the box. I'll have it for you guys next week, because I do have the Batroc action figure. Yes. I don't have a Winter Soldier one. I have a Batroc one because I love me some obscure characters. But he looked like literally the comics accurate Batroc. He's in like a purple and yellow jumpsuit, and he's got like this pencil mustache, like literally he's like looks like he's the villain of a silent movie.
Yes, he's pretty goofy. So then we get Cap there. He's busting people up and stuff and doing his thing. And then Black Widow jumps in the fray. She's got her own thing. We see her use her, the Widow's bite here, and she's going ahead and joining the fray. She has some really badass action sequences too when she comes in. But she also has her mission of getting information for SHIELD, for Fury, that Cap doesn't know about, which start a whole thing moving forward. And the fight between Batroc and Cap in the scene is also super badass. And Jason, the way he's like, oh, I thought you were more than just a shield. And he puts the shield away. He takes off his helmet.
Oh.
And the look on his face, he's just ready to fucking go.
Okay, again, it's a badass moment. And this is to Chris Evans' credit, because the man can act. Like, he's a good looking guy and he's good at action, but let us not take away the fact that this man is a good, great actor. Because every time he does something badass, it's always with the Captain America humility. He's like, yeah, he's not like, yeah, I'll fuck you up. It's more like, I thought you were more than a shield. And he's like,
put the shield away.
and it's like he's not trying to threaten him. And I think a lesser actor would have played that as trying to be threatening, but he plays it with such an earnestness, like, no, I don't need this shield. I'm fine. Let's have it your way then. It's your last fight. And I just love the way Chris Evans portrays Cap in these scenes, or in every scene.
Mm-hmm. And we also get a lot of, when Fury talks to him about Project Insight, and that's where we get a lot of what we were talking about last week, right? Like, Cap pushes back on Project Insight. He tells him, like, hey, this is what it is. This is, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring freedom to the world by eliminating threats before they even really become threats. And the way Cap pushes back is like, what, by holding a gun to everyone's head and calling it freedom? And he points at him, he goes, this isn't fear. This isn't freedom, this is fear. And Fury's answers back with, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, not how we want it to be. That conversation with the two of them is probably one of the best in this whole movie.
Yes. And it really does sum up, like, different kinds of heroism and the difference between real heroism and anti-heroism. Like, because Fury's an anti-hero, right? I don't think we can really argue that. Like, he's got good intentions, but he will fucking torch a city of children if it's for the greater good, right? That's kind of what his thing is, and that's what this conversation is. This is like, well, again, going back to what CAP stands for. S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world, or America, for what it is and works with that. CAP takes the world, or America, on the ideals it was built on and should be. Exactly. And they're now butting heads. And, like, this whole movie is, like, symbolically, God, I wish this would happen in real life, but symbolically, the ideals of America winning over the reality. That Fury puts forth.
Yeah, and that's that conversation. So that sets everything up here too. We also get Alexander Pierce. Also, when he gets introduced, he mentions that Fury is what he chose him to be the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. because he's one of the most ruthless people he's ever met. Like you had mentioned, he will do anything required to get the mission. Anything, it doesn't matter.
Right. And I think it's interesting because, like, the movie does something very smart. It could be easy to portray Fury as being wrong or the bad guy, but the movie doesn't. The movie very clearly portrays Fury as heroic, but like an anti-hero, as we said. But I think what the movie's telling us is that you need that. You do need that to make things successful and work, but you need it governed by the ideals, right? It can't be, I look at the world and I take the world as it is and fuck it, I'm just going to make it safe. You can't do that because then it's what Cap says. By putting freedom, that's not freedom, it's fear. It's a gun to the head. Yeah, sure, it'll work, but that's not what we're about. And you kind of need, and that's why it's important that Cap, like, you have that moment when Captain America's like, we're taking down Hydra, we're taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. And Fury pushes back, and he's like, no, I'm giving the fucking orders now. And Fury's like, hey, I guess you're the captain. And you need that moment because that moment is saying, like, yeah, you need people like Fury, but they need to be governed by people like Captain America, the idealists. The idealists need to set the rules of what the people like Fury can do. Because the people like Fury, when left to their own devices, even with the best of intentions, this whole movie happens because of what Fury wants to do. Because his good intentions are co-opted by Hydra.
Yeah, and yeah, the whole thing with Hydra in this movie, the way that they're used, and they've infiltrated Shield, they're pushed Shield, they have their hands in a lot of shit, and I thought that was a really interesting way to do it. And then when we get to meet, and again we are jumping around a little bit here, which is fine, but the Armin Zola, when we get his reintroduction as basically like this AI bot that was in an old Shield base and an old U.S. Army base in New Jersey, that same one we saw in the first Avenger, is pretty terrifying in a way. And I love that character of Armin Zola. And some of the things that are, he reiterates the Hydra motto of, cut off one head, two shall take its place. And he gives the whole background of how Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. over the years, pushed things along and stuff like that, made things happen, and right under their fucking noses. He's such a cool character. It is a shame he's done.
Yeah,
but love it.
He's an awesome character, and I think again he really suits or works in the allegorical nature of this, or the symbolic nature of this film. Because if you remember correctly, which of course you do, because we just watched this movie last week, Arnim Zola is recruited by the U.S. government after he is, captured. Much like in the real world, how former Nazi soldiers were recruited after the war to help further, the cause of the American cause of science or whatever. But it's one of those things like, well, you could take the Nazi out of Germany, or you could take the Nazi out of the Nazi party, but you can't take the Nazi party out of the Nazi. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So yeah, Arnim Zola came and he did what he was conscripted to do for his freedom, but he helped push the Hydra agenda. And let's not pretend Hydra isn't just a version of Nazism, right? It's Nazis, but worse.
Exactly. More science-based Nazis.
Right.
They were the science
but
division.
It's like, yeah, exactly. The science division. And you could argue that, if they just shot Arnim Zola in the head and didn't think like, hey, we can use him for our purposes, we can make him one of ours and use his brilliance, then none of this would have happened, right? Yep. Because Arnim Zola is not the only person that the U.S. government did that with, and it is those people who were former Hydra who infiltrate and kind of allowed this to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think it's, again, really interesting what the movie's doing.
And one of the other really cool action sequences we get here, you mentioned Nick Fury, is that hit that Hydra puts on him after a conversation with Alexander Pierce. And he's in the car.
God, yes. Oh, my God.
It is nuts. Dude, the cops are there, and then you get the AI telling him, like, there are no police officers in the area. They don't waste any expense. They have a fucking firing squad surrounding Fury. Because they know he's going to be a huge threat. He ain't going down easy.
They know how hard it is to kill Fury, except they don't know enough because they didn't do it.
Exactly. But dude, they even brought out. This is when we get the introduction of the Winter Soldier. He pops in.
Yes, it is.
And he has that bomb that goes in, the heat-seeking thing that goes under the car and sets off and like that and blows up. You're right. Yeah. Fury finds a way to escape temporarily. He buys himself a little bit more time. Before because the Winter Soldier's after him.
And we're talking about I was talking about how great Evans is in this acting wise. We can't sleep on how good Sam Jackson is in this. Like this is peak Nick Fury. Fucking peak Nick Fury.
Yes.
And I love the scene in that, the moment in that where, and it's such a small thing, but the AI is like, should I deploy the gun now? No, wait, structure 99%. All right, now. He literally waits until he's ready to destroy it and kill them all. Like, They're just such good moments and such smart writing and such great character moments. Like, and again, that's why you need people like Nick Fury. They're survivors. They're squirrely. They get shit done, but they can't be in charge. You know, and oh god, I love it so much.
Yeah, and then we meet the Winter Soldier briefly. You mentioned we meet Agent 13 as she is next door to she's Cap's neighbor at that point. But then when Cap goes into his apartment, Nick Fury escapes there, and they have this conversation. They know the apartment's bugged, and then Bucky is after him again and shoots him. And presumably he uses that to fake his own death, which you had mentioned he does come back later on in the film. But we also get this crazy chase sequence with Cap chasing down Bucky, where Jason, there's a point in this scene where he's running so fast he can't even control himself. He runs into a fucking wall and bounces off the wall to keep going after. And that's how fat he's locked in and determined he is. Like you mentioned, it kind of happens a little bit in the first Avenger.
Yes, I was going to say that. Please go for it.
Yeah, so it's almost kind of like a callback where he's just that determined to go after the person. But this time when he throws that shield, Bucky turns around with the metal arm and catches that shit and flings it back at him.
Yeah.
Like that is
so good.
I still remember seeing that in the trailers in advance. I'm like, oh my god. This fucking movie is just the excitement is just off the charts for this before and like even at that moment.
It's oh my god, it's so and you know what? I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say everyone's great in this movie because I think Sebastian Stan, like I forget because we go through so like we were with Bucky for a while and he's always good, but like this is the best he is, like performance wise, because he really has to when we see him in Falcon Winter Soldier, he's Bucky. He's he gets to joke around and stuff. But he's menacing in this. He is so menacing and terrifying. Like, just real quick at the end when he gets onto the helicarrier and fucking murders a bunch of people, and like takes the Quinn jet to go get Cap. I'm like, the expression on his face. The man is terrifying as a killer, and again, we don't see this version of Bucky again after this. And so good. I can't stop to saying how much I love things in this movie. I can't think of one negative thing, and I just watched it. So normally I would be able to have something. I did nothing.
Yeah, so we got Nick Fury faking his own death. We talked about the elevator scene, Cap the Quinjet. Another one of my favorite things is when they're on the run, and it's just it's Cap and Black Widow on the run, and they're being hunted down by Hydra, and she tells him to kiss her because public PDA makes people uncomfortable, and that's how they barely get away from Crossbones. There was that crossing paths on the escalator, and that's where the conversation that leads to the conversation I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I figured that's where you're going with it, and she's 100% correct because the first thing Crossbones does when he sees him start to make out is look away disgustedly, like, I don't want to see this.
Like nobody in their right mind is legitimately like, what are they gonna do? Like, get out popcorn and just like start like watch it? No, you automatically exactly. You're like, all right, get out of here. This is a moment here. These two are having.
But it also informs Black Widow's character, right? Which we haven't really talked much about, but like Black Widow's a fucking great spy. Like, it's not even just that she can kick ass, and she can, obviously, but she reads people well. She thinks on her feet. She's a great spy. And we saw this in Avengers, of course, and I can't wait to just cover that scene. By the way, you know what scene I'm talking about, where she's being interrogated. But I like that you get little moments where. Don't forget, she doesn't have superpowers, but that doesn't mean that she's not fucking great at what she does.
No, she's excellent at what she does, and the conversation she has with Steve in the truck that they're borrowing, because she asks the question of, how does Captain America know how to hotwire a car? He talks about things like, and I thought that was interesting too, that he's like, hey, we had to do things we weren't necessarily proud of either. And he tells that to Fury at another point too. in Nazi Germany, but nothing to this extent like what Fury wants to do. But she also even mentions like that she can be whatever she needs to be at that moment, and it talks to a level of how great of a spy Natasha is, right? Like she can just turn on a fucking dime. You want me to be your friend, you want me to be whoever, because he even just says like eventually a friend. But she hits him with the line of, "Well, I think you might be in the wrong business, Rogers," and he hits her back with that later on. Of course,
and that moment, that ability to adapt really pays off at the end too, where she is literally taking the face of one of the the cabal of evil senators, and I completely forgot about that, and then she starts kicking ass. I'm like, wait, that the female senator can kick some ass, and then of course it was her. And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. But literally, that's what she meant. I can be whatever I need to be in that moment. Yep. And that was the symbolic personification of it. I think it's such a great callback to that conversation.
She also has a great joke, by the way, in the bunker where they're talking to Armin Zola about war games, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was,
like,
that was good.
Would you like to play a game? And he's just like, yeah, I saw it. Yes. I got that reference. But yeah, they form a bond though throughout this film. Like I mentioned earlier, you could tell that Natasha and Steve have built a bond going into it. But this film really solidifies it throughout the film. Because even when they have that moment after they almost get killed by Hydra in the bunker, when they're at Sam's place, she used the snort and everything like that. And again, they you could tell like they're pretty tight in this, and it goes from there because even in Endgame, they have a conversation with the peanut butter sandwich and stuff like that. Like those two are definitely pretty tight here.
Yeah.
Another thing I did love is right before the interrogation of Stillwell on the roof, right where they have that whole thing where they're interrogating him. We get Gary Shandling's character, his senator character from Iron Man 2.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought this up.
They pulled a random fucking nod to it. Universe building, my friend. Universe building.
Yeah, because if you remember in Iron Man 2, and we'll cover it when we get to it, he hates Tony Stark and he hates the Iron Man initiative. He's the one trying to get his hands on the Stark technology. And
I wonder why.
This movie explains why, because he's fucking Hydra. And I love me some Gary Shandling, R.I.P. I think he's a very funny guy, great stand-up, he did some great movies, great shows. But I love getting to see him in this, and you actually get to hear him do the Hail Hydra, in the ear. And then at the end when he gets arrested, oh my God, it was such a great callback. And again, so smart, and as you said, such great world building.
Mm-hmm. And that interrogation scene with Stillwell on the roof, that's when we get when he's talking about the future threats. He names drops Stephen Strange. Also, and I remember like that set people like fucking crazy at the time because we didn't meet Doctor Strange.
That's right. I forget the timeline wise. There's so much that we haven't met Doctor Strange yet. Hearing it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, Doctor Strange. But at the time, that was huge.
I remember leaving the theater when I first saw this, and I saw this me and Angie got to see this in an advanced screening a while before it opened. So we had to keep this movie in and had no one to talk to about it for a while.
It's painful. That's painful. That's painful.
It was.
I watched this last night and I was chomping at the bit to talk about it with you today.
It was an incredible experience, put it that way. But yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, I remember everyone lost their shit, at that moment. We got a Russo brother cameo as one of the doctors, also. That's in the background here. Yeah, he also makes an appearance in Endgame as well. I think it's when they're patching up. It's one of the doctors that are working on Nick Fury. When we get to see that he turns out he was faking his own death. And the chase scene after that, the battle on the bridge, when Winter Soldier just breaks through the top of the roof of the car that they're in. And there's that whole thing where Hydra's there and they hit Cap with a fucking rocket on the shield and stuff. And Natasha goes, like Black Widow goes to battle with the Winter Soldier as well. He takes all three of them on at the same time, essentially, and fights them all off until Cap gets more involved and they go toe to toe. And that hand-to-hand fight that they have with the knife that he drops it down, picks it up, is so fucking well choreographed that it's wild. Yeah, and that during that fight is when the mask drops, and we find out that it's Bucky. And Steve's reaction to that, when his jaw drops and he's just so distorted. That's a moment.
Yeah, and we also get a mirrored moment after that when they have Winter Soldier in the chair when he gets back, and he's like, "I knew him." He's like, seeing Steve Rogers is what I mean. Ultimately, seeing Steve Rogers is what brings him back to himself, right? And because they like just wipe his mind again. They've been wiping his mind for fucking decades, keeping him on ice. But seeing his friend like that, that's kind of what shakes the programming. And we see that at the end, right? Because Cap won't kill him. Cap says, "All right, you kill me if you want. My mission's done." And he reiterates to him like, I'm here to the mission's end, just with you, just like you were with me. And Cap at the end of that scene, like he does in the first one, winds up in the fucking water. He crashes in the water, but Bucky pulls him out, and that's huge because that means just seeing Steve Rogers and remembering the connection to their friendship broke his programming.
Yeah, and it can't go back because it keeps on happening. It happens twice in this movie. He breaks it. That's a great fight that's in there. Cap getting the OG suit from First Avenger when he has to go to the Smithsonian before they go to the final act, the final battle. And we get the Stan Lee cameo who's like, "I'm so fired," because he's working there.
I'm so fired.
Yeah. It was heartwarming to see that again.
I miss Stan Lee.
And then Cap gives the speech when they break into the Triskelion and everything. And Sam's reaction is just like, "Wow. Like, did you practice that in advance? Did you
I love that.
Yeah, it just you start to really see the admiration that Sam Wilson has for Steve Rogers.
Yeah,
in that
absolutely.
Along the way. Then the final battle with the helicarriers and stuff that are trying to take everyone down. You get Falcon versus Winter Soldier again. You get. You said Natasha's on her mission. She's one of the World Security Council members. Cap is busting dudes up again, taking them down. And then you had mentioned the final stare down between Bucky and Cap, which is really heartfelt, a deep moment there, which we had talked about. Fury shoots Alexander Pierce to take him out, which is a person he looked to as a mentor and as a friend for many years, so there is a lot there as well. You had mentioned that, boom. And then I guess that kind of takes us to the end, where Natasha testifies, right? Because all the secrets are out and everyone knows, including her own. And there's an interesting little conversation there to be had that all the stuff you've done for and against this country, that you should probably be thrown in prison. And she's like, "Well, no, you need us." Meaning kind of like her and the Avengers and stuff like that.
Fury and Cap, and you
know where to find me. I ain't hard to find, which I mean, she's impossible.
But the sentiment is there. Like, just come to rescue.
The sentiment is there.
And I love that they. Okay, good.
No, basically, like, hey, you can come talk to Stark, talk to Steve Rogers. They'll help me find you. Can help find me whenever you want. I'm right here. I'm not hiding anymore. Like, I'm done doing that.
And I love when they ask, "Well, how come Steve Rogers isn't here testifying?" And she went, he dropped 3 ships in the ocean. I think that he made a statement. Yes. I love that line.
There's no words to cover at that point. He did his thing emphatically. So
Yeah.
You can take it from there. And then Nick Fury just kind of goes with his cover that he's dead, right? Like he's gonna really go secret, like dark now. And Natasha hands over some files that she got from her contacts in Kiev to help hunt down Bucky. And he's even like, hey, when do we start? Like Sam's like, no question, dude. I got your back, 100%. Like
I love that.
Basically, I'm with you to the end of the line now.
Yeah. Sam is modern day Bucky, right? I mean, that's it. He's the modern, like he's the equivalent to 2000s Cap's 2000s Bucky. He's there to the end. They're best friends, and it's earned. Like their friendship is earned because we didn't talk about it much, but like you got the on your left scene, and then they go to him when they need to hide. And he's like, no, I'm all in. I'm going to help you guys. This is the right thing to do. You're fucking Captain America. And then before that, he visits Bucky at the VA. And so, like, you really see their friendship blossoming through this, right? And it's earned. And that's important because this is an action movie. It's an action movie. It's a comic book movie. It's Captain America. You don't necessarily expect to see earned relationships. And we don't get earned relationships all the time in these movies. Right? Sometimes it's like, oh, you guys are friends because of the writing. But we do see the evolution in this, and it feels so earned at the end when Falcon's like, no, I'm with you. I'm coming with you.
Yeah. And I think also the comparison between his relationship with Bucky and his relationship with Sam. So the relationship he has with Bucky is basically that's his brother, right? Like essentially, right? Like that's it. They've known each other since forever. That's it. He's got his back no matter what, and vice versa, right? When him and Sam do hit it off pretty easily, and you're right. Throughout this movie, you do start seeing it blossoming, and it does progress throughout the film. But also, I do think that at least at this point, Sam is looking at him as Captain America. Also, when you're right when he says like, "Listen, I thought you got out. Like you're good." He's like, well, if Captain America needs my help, there's no other better reason I can think of to get back in. Because he's inspired by Captain America. And I think that's important when he hands over the shield and to modern day who he is, that he is also part of the symbol of it. So I think that's important because you got Bucky, who is like Steve Rogers' best friend, and then you have Sam Wilson, who at least is inspired by Captain America, and he kind of meets him as Captain America and kind of like reverse engineers his relationship, and then obviously him and Steve become who they become.
Right.
So I think that's cool. And then the mid-credit scene is Baron von Strucker has the Loki staff with the Tesseract in it, and he created, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, Wanda and Pietro, and we get that first glimpse because this movie directly sets up Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yes, because Age of Ultron starts with
they're completing that because von Strucker even says, "Hey, Captain America and his colorful friends, meaning the Avengers, give him all this info to keep him off our scent." But obviously, eventually, they bust through all of that and track down von Strucker, and they run into the twins, and that's how that whole thing. So this movie, that scene directly does lead into that. And the post-credit scene is Bucky going back to the Smithsonian and reading up on himself and kind of learning, getting a full grasp of like what happened with him, and gets to relearn his own history.
Yeah, I like that. I like that moment again. Sebastian Stan's acting, just the look on his face when he sees his own picture and he's reading his own background.
Yeah,
there's just this. I can't even describe it, but it's this sorrow and this hope, and he does a lot of good acting in his face there. Like, I think we sleep on how good Sebastian Stan is as an actor as well.
Hey, currently nominated. Is it Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor for whatever he was in?
All right, we sleep no more.
No, I'm saying ironically we're talking about it now, but you're 100% correct though. Like this movie's pretty old now, so
it is.
He definitely was bringing it since day one for sure.
Before we move on, I just want
anything else?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about Robert Redford because I don't think we really discussed him that much here. I think he does such a great performance. I think it's fun because he was in that spy movie Sneakers, and so now he's the bad guy here. Yeah, it's a good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. But I also think one of the big critiques of the MCU as a whole is like weaker villains, and I agree with that to a point. But I feel that we don't really give him enough credit for the villain he is, because he's a fucking great villain in this, and he's one of my favorite types of villains, where he is like, oh no, he seems like he's a good guy. And he's a good guy in his own story. He thinks he's doing the right thing. But he's kind of like Nick Fury, but worse. Because Nick Fury, I don't think Nick Fury obviously wouldn't do some of the shit he's doing for the greater good, right? And I think that's what they're getting at, is like, there are different shades of people in charge. We should have Captain America. Some of them are Nick Fury, and those people, they're not bad. You can work with them. But some of them are so far gone that you just can't. And that's what he represents. And I think the scene that really gets me, this is the scene, there are like 3 scenes in this that I remember no matter how long it is before I've seen it. And one of it is when his housekeeper comes back and Bucky's sitting there, and he turns around and he's like, oh, I wish you would have knocked. And he just fucking shoots her in the head. He doesn't get Winter Soldier to do it, which would have been a different choice.
Yeah.
He does it. And I think right there, that shows you everything you need to know about this character. It shows you everything that Nick Fury was talking about, right? Because Nick Fury's like, he refused to take the national, the
Nobel
Peace
Peace
Prize.
Prize. Yeah.
The Nobel Peace Prize, because he said that peace, can you tell I just watched the end of this before we started? Because I'm actually quoting it. He said that peace was an obligation, not something that should be awarded for. And it's like, everything you need to know about this guy is summed up in him casually murdering someone he genuinely likes because she found stuff out that she couldn't take with her. And I think a lesser actor in that role doesn't do it justice. And I think Robert Redford needs a little kudos for that, because he's a great actor and he really shines in this. And you know what? He's an older man. He's Robert Redford. He can rest on his laurels if he wants. He's in a fucking comic book movie, which is how he could have looked at it, but he still brings it. And so I wanted to discuss his character there as well, and his acting.
Yeah, I will say, listen, when you really look at the cast in this movie, like you mentioned, Robert Redford now, Samuel L. Jackson, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, like everyone brings it in this movie.
Yeah,
like I think you had to, because of, and that's what helps to elevate this movie to the level it is. Because I'm not going to say
exactly.
It's not the best MCU movie, because it certainly is. If it's not, it's absolutely in the conversation. If it's not, it's like 1 or number 2, and that's as far as I could see it dropping.
Yeah, no, same. I mean, and again, there are movies I might prefer to watch more, like the spectacle movies. But again, this is a lot of the MCU movies are fantastic comic book movies. But would you appreciate them if you weren't a comic book fan? I'd say for the most part, no. My wife doesn't. My wife can't stand most of these movies. This is a movie that I would definitely think if I get my wife to watch it, she'd like. And I kind of can say that because I did get her to watch Civil War, and she really liked that. Okay. And if you like Civil War, you're gonna like this, because this is, as much as I love Civil War, this is a better movie.
Yes, I agree, and I'm with you 100%. That's there's no question. All right, so I think that will wrap it up for us for this week. Thank you for joining us as always. If you're joining us on Facebook, check us out on the Granny's PhD Facebook group, because that's where we share a lot of fun stories and other trailers and whatnot. We will be getting a trailer, by the way, on Tuesday morning at 8:40 on Good Morning America. We're getting our first trailer for Fantastic Four: First Steps.
I'm excited.
So we got a trailer reaction for next week. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you know, I won't watch it. I'm going to save it for the show.
Okay. Check out Pop Culture Pros and popculturepros.com, because that's what we are presented by. Check us on YouTube. Subscribe to Pop Culture Pros or wherever you found your audio-only version of the podcast. Jason and I will be back next week. More loaded show, because we will have Harley Quinn, episode 3, talk about. We have Invincible coming back with a few episodes.
Holy
their season 3.
I'm cool. I'm excited.
We have Invincible. We have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And we have our movie of the week, Captain America Civil War, to get into. So if this
can't wait. I haven't rewatched this in a while.
If there is a giant-sized annual, then that is it. That is it, man. Because that's a lot of shit. Man. So
that is, yeah. We got a lot going on.
So come back and join us next week, and we'll talk to you then. Peace.
Later.